You ever have one of those moments where reality glitches and you think, there's no way this is actually happening right now? That was me, standing in my garage with a barbell across my shoulders, halfway through a heavy squat, when I heard what sounded like someone trying to break down my garage door. At first, I thought I was imagining things, maybe a neighbor accidentally knocked something over, or the wind had slammed something shut. But then the banging happened again, louder this time. Not subtle. Not polite. Like someone had watched too many action movies and thought they could bust down the door like the SWAT team. I racked the barbell, heart pounding, not from the workout anymore, but from sheer confusion, and walked over to the garage door, still breathing heavily, sweat dripping down my face. The music was still thumping from my Bluetooth speaker. It wasn't crazy loud, just enough to keep me motivated. I paused it, wiped my hands on a towel, and was just about to open the door when the damn thing flew open on its own star. And there she was. Karen. The president of our HOA. The self-declared queen of quiet. 60-something years old with a tight perm, huge sunglasses despite it being barely sunrise, and a phone out in front of her like she was filming a TMZ exposé. She didn't even hesitate, just marched right in like this was her jurisdiction. I had half a mind to ask her for a search warrant. I knew it, she said, triumph in her voice like she'd just uncovered a meth lab. I knew you were throwing parties in here. I blinked, genuinely stunned. What? You've got 20 people in here, don't you? She shouted. Don't lie to me. I heard the music. 5 complaints. 5. I looked around. My home gym, spacious but modest, was exactly how I left it 10 minutes ago. No confetti, no beer pong tables, no wild teenagers. Just one dude, mid-leg day, surrounded by squat racks, dumbbells, a treadmill, a punching bag, and an empty protein shake bottle. It's just me, I said, gesturing around like a confused tour guide. And my workout playlist. She wasn't listening. She was too busy circling my gym setup like a detective examining a crime scene. Her phone was still recording, pointed at my equipment, muttering things like, clearly commercial use, and, unauthorized facility. I started to wonder if she thought she was on Dateline. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Karen, what exactly are you doing in my garage? She didn't even look at me. Responding to a complaint. This is excessive noise. Disturbing the peace. People are trying to sleep. I glanced at the wall clock. It's 6:47 a.m. She spun on me. HOA rules say no noise before 7. Yeah, I said, nodding. And I started at 6:30, with the garage door closed, music barely above a whisper. But you just barged in. Karen waved that off like it was irrelevant. Doesn't matter. I heard music. I got woken up. I tried not to laugh, but the absurdity of it all was too much. I actually smiled. Big mistake. That only made her angrier. You think this is funny? This is a violation of our community standards. I put my hands on my hips, still catching my breath from the workout and now from this drama. What community standard says you can break into someone's property because you heard a bit of music? She held up a clipboard. A clipboard, I kid you not. With printed HOA rules and everything. She started flipping through the pages like she was about to lay down a courtroom verdict. Section 4, Clause 2b, she read aloud, states that excessive noise and unauthorized modifications of residential property shall be grounds for disciplinary action. I gestured to my dumbbells. That's not a nightclub. That's a bench press. Also, the only thing excessive here is your drama. Her mouth tightened into a line. So you admit this is a modification? You've turned your garage into a business? I blinked. What? Don't lie to me. This is a fitness studio. I've seen people come in and out. You're charging neighbors to use your gym, aren't you? I actually laughed this time, which sent her over the edge. Karen, I work from home. This is my personal gym. The only one sweating in here is me. No one else comes in. She didn't believe me. Not for a second. She snapped photos of my power rack, my treadmill, my punching bag, even the water bottle I left on the floor like it was evidence in a felony investigation. You can't do this, she said, finger wagging like a metronome of rage. You're violating HOA policy, city ordinances, probably fire codes, and God knows what else. Karen, I said slowly, you're in my garage. You opened my door without permission. That's trespassing. She froze for half a second. A flicker of doubt crossed her face, just enough for me to notice. But then she quickly masked it with more anger. The door was already open, she snapped. No, I replied, I opened it 5 seconds before you came in because I was about to take a breath of air. You tried to kick it in, remember? You're being aggressive, she said sharply. I looked down at myself. Sweat-soaked tank top, weighted vest still strapped to my chest, towel slung over my shoulder, and a confused expression on my face. I'm wearing gym clothes and holding a Gatorade. You're the one who's storming into private property. She narrowed her eyes. This isn't over. Then she turned on her heel, stormed back out of my garage, and marched down my driveway muttering something about calling an emergency board meeting. I stood there in silence for a moment. Then I looked at the barbell still loaded on the rack, sighed, and muttered, well, guess it's time for deadlifts. I turned the music back on. Maybe a notch louder. I honestly thought that was the end of it. Karen stormed off in a rage, probably to go terrorize someone else who had the audacity to live their life slightly outside her perfect little HOA handbook. I figured she just needed to blow off some steam and that she'd eventually realize how ridiculous she had acted, breaking into my garage, accusing me of running a gym empire, and quoting HOA regulations like she was Judge Judy. I was wrong. So wrong. The next morning, right after I finished my morning workout, this time with my music at barely audible levels and the garage door completely closed, I heard my doorbell ring. I wiped off the sweat from my forehead, walked to the front door, and opened it to find a bright yellow envelope taped to it. No knock, no face-to-face conversation. Just an envelope taped neatly like it had been delivered by someone who knew I wouldn't want to see them in person. Inside the envelope was an official-looking HOA violation notice, printed on letterhead with our neighborhood's floral logo at the top. 3 bold claims were listed. Unauthorized business activity. Excessive noise outside permitted hours. Aggressive and threatening behavior toward an HOA officer. That last one nearly made me spit out my coffee. Threatening behavior? The only thing I threatened was my own hamstrings with Romanian deadlifts. Apparently, calmly pointing out that she had trespassed and was overreacting counted as aggressive behavior now. Beneath the list of violations was a request to cease and desist all commercial operations immediately, along with a warning that failure to comply could result in a daily fine of $200. I just stared at it, stunned. This woman was seriously trying to fine me for working out in my own garage. Alone. With music playing at levels quieter than most cars driving down the street. That's when the anger started to simmer. At first it was confusion, is this for real, but now I was actually mad. I wasn't about to let this lady steamroll me with baseless accusations and made-up charges. So I did what any normal person would do, I opened my laptop and started pulling receipts. First, I reviewed my home security footage. I had a camera in the corner of my garage, mostly for peace of mind, and it had captured everything. Karen pounding on the garage door, trying to push it open, then stepping inside without so much as a knock once I opened it. It also captured the entire conversation, audio included, and showed how calm I had remained while she yelled, recorded, and waved her clipboard around like a badge. Next, I pulled up the HOA's bylaws. I had a PDF from the welcome packet they gave me when I moved in, and I scrolled through until I found the relevant sections. Noise complaints weren't allowed before 7 a.m., but I had started my workout at 6:30 with the garage closed and the volume well below anything that could be called disturbing. There was nothing against having workout equipment in your garage. In fact, there were several neighbors who had tools, workbenches, and even drum kits. And as for commercial activity? Please. I hadn't had a single person over in weeks. Still, I knew Karen wouldn't back off unless she was publicly proven wrong. So I took it a step further. I edited the video footage into a short, 2-minute clip that clearly showed her entering my garage uninvited and making wild accusations. I added a calm caption: "For anyone wondering about the noise complaint incident yesterday, this is what actually happened." Then I uploaded it to our neighborhood's private Facebook group. I didn't expect it to blow up. But it did. Within an hour, the video had dozens of comments. Some were sympathetic. Others were shocked. Many were angry, at Karen. Wait, she walked into your garage without permission? Why does she think working out is illegal? I hear kids screaming louder than that music every morning. Karen's been on a power trip for years. I'm glad someone finally caught it on video. Karen, naturally, commented under the post. Her message was long, defensive, and full of legal-sounding language. She claimed the HOA had reasonable suspicion of illegal activity and that she was acting within her authority to investigate community disturbances. She accused me of weaponizing social media and gaslighting the neighborhood. That only made things worse for her. More neighbors chimed in, sharing their own grievances. The time she yelled at a teenager for skateboarding on the sidewalk, the time she scolded someone for planting non-regulation tulips, and the time she reported a family for having a trampoline that was visible from the street. It was like a floodgate had opened. For years, people had put up with her antics out of politeness or fear of getting fined. But now that they had video proof of her barging into someone's garage and making baseless accusations, they were done staying quiet. I didn't comment again. I didn't need to. The neighborhood spoke for itself. It was cathartic, honestly. Watching people I barely knew come to my defense, shutting her down with logic and first-hand stories, made me feel like I wasn't crazy for being mad. I had just wanted to work out in peace. She had made it personal. That evening, I got an unexpected knock at the door. It wasn't Karen this time, it was Dave, one of the quieter members of the HOA board. He was holding a small folder and had an awkward, apologetic look on his face. "Hey," he said. "Mind if I come in for a second?" We sat at the kitchen table, and he explained that several board members had seen the video, and that they were concerned about the way the situation was handled. Translation: even the HOA knew Karen had overstepped. He asked if I would attend the next board meeting to give my side of the story. I said I'd be happy to. I also told him I had the full, unedited video if they needed more evidence. As he left, he turned back and said, "You know, my wife's been thinking of setting up a treadmill in our garage. Is that against the rules too?" I smiled. "Not unless you invite Karen." He laughed. "Not a chance." I closed the door behind him, feeling more vindicated than I had in days. Karen had made the mistake of thinking she could bully her way through another situation, but this time, she picked the wrong garage. And something told me, deep down, she knew it. The morning after my video made its rounds through the neighborhood Facebook group, I walked out to check the mail and swear I could feel the air crackling. You know that odd silence before a thunderstorm? That was the vibe. Only instead of clouds, it was the weight of 50 passive-aggressive HOA stares and one furious Karen. I didn't even make it to the mailbox before I saw her, Karen, standing on the corner, talking to a group of people I vaguely recognized from past HOA meetings. She had a binder this time, not just a clipboard, and was flipping through it so fast the pages were nearly flying out. She glanced up, caught my eye, and for a brief second, her expression went from righteous fury to full-on meltdown mode. I just smiled, tipped my coffee mug at her, and walked back inside. That afternoon, I got a letter in my mailbox, not an email, not a knock, not even a printed HOA violation sheet like before. This was a hand-delivered letter, typed, signed in aggressive cursive, and stuffed in a plain white envelope like it was some kind of secret legal warning. Dear resident, it began. Resident, not even my name. Classy. It went on to accuse me of manipulating public perception with edited and misleading footage, of undermining HOA authority, and, get this, of harassment by digital means. I didn't even know that was a thing. According to her, I had created a hostile environment and was actively defaming a long-serving volunteer member of the HOA board. The kicker? She said the HOA had voted to issue an emergency cease and desist letter against me for unlicensed commercial activity, and warned that if I continued to use my garage for anything other than parking my car, legal action could follow. I laughed so hard I almost choked on my protein bar. So I got to work. First, I printed out the HOA bylaws again. Highlighted every single section that related to garage use, personal fitness, noise ordinances, and commercial activity. Nowhere, nowhere, did it say you couldn't use your garage as a gym. In fact, multi-purpose residential use was explicitly allowed, provided it didn't generate public traffic or cause structural damage. And since I wasn't charging a dime, or inviting anyone over, and hadn't touched the structure of the house, I was in the clear. Second, I compiled my video evidence. Not just the edited Facebook version, but the full raw security footage. 3 angles, one from the garage cam, one from the front porch, and one from inside the house where you could hear the exact music volume. I had the full conversation, every word, and not a single second where I raised my voice, threatened her, or did anything that could be remotely called harassment. Then I emailed the HOA board directly. Not Karen. The actual board. I wrote a clear, level-headed message explaining what had happened, included the video files, and offered to present everything in person at the next board meeting. I also mentioned that Karen had entered my property without permission and was now attempting to retaliate after being caught on video. That email caused a small earthquake. Within 24 hours, I got a reply from one of the board members, Susan, who I'd met once at a barbecue and who always seemed reasonable. She said the board had been unaware of the full context and appreciated my thorough documentation. She confirmed that the cease and desist letter was not official HOA correspondence and that the matter would be addressed at the next board meeting. She also apologized for any confusion or overreach caused by certain individuals acting outside their authority. Translation: Karen was already in hot water. But it didn't stop there. The next day, I noticed something interesting. My video had made the rounds beyond just Facebook. Neighbors were coming up to me on their morning walks, giving me quiet thumbs-ups. One guy even slowed his jog to say, "I've wanted to call her out for years. Glad someone finally did." Another woman walked her dog past my driveway and paused, then whispered, she tried to write me up for having garden gnomes. Gnomes. Like it was a security threat or something. Apparently, Karen had been on a years-long power trip, and my video had torn the lid off her self-righteous reign. Then something hilarious happened. A teenage neighbor, I think his name is Tyler, posted a parody video. He staged a mock bust where he pretended to be Karen, barging into his own garage while yelling, "This isn't a ping-pong table, this is an illegal gambling ring." He even wore a wig and sunglasses. It went viral in the neighborhood group chat. Hundreds of views, dozens of laughing emojis, and even a few Karen bingo memes started circulating. Karen, unsurprisingly, didn't take it well. She made a lengthy, furious post on the Facebook group demanding that all HOA-related discussions be removed immediately and accusing people of cyberbullying. That post was locked by the group moderators within minutes, with a note, "Let's all be respectful. Also, please refrain from entering your neighbors' garages without permission." By the time the HOA meeting came around, things had snowballed completely out of her control. I walked into the small community center where the meeting was held and immediately felt eyes on me. Some curious. Some supportive. Karen was seated at the end of the board table, clutching her binder like it was a flotation device. When she saw me, her jaw tightened. The president of the HOA, an older gentleman named Leonard, cleared his throat and began the meeting. It was procedural at first: budget stuff, landscaping updates, pool maintenance. Then Leonard looked up from his papers and said, "We'll now hear from Mr. Miller regarding the incident from last week." I stood up, thanked them for the opportunity, and laid everything out, calmly, clearly, and with receipts. I explained my garage setup, my workout schedule, my adherence to the bylaws. I played the unedited video, projected on the screen behind me. It showed Karen pounding the garage door, barging in, accusing me of running a business, then storming off. The audio captured every word. When the video ended, the room was silent. Then someone at the back let out a low whistle. A few people even clapped. Karen, red-faced and visibly shaking, tried to launch into a defense. "I acted in the interest of the community," she said. "I was responding to multiple complaints." "No written complaints were submitted," Leonard interrupted. "And we've reviewed the footage. You entered someone's private property without consent. That is unacceptable." She started to protest again, but Leonard cut her off. "The board is moving to formally reprimand you, Karen. Your conduct was inappropriate, and going forward, you are not to engage directly with residents regarding violations. Any concerns must go through official channels." I sat back down, trying not to smile too hard. That night, I walked home with a lightness in my step I hadn't felt in days. The sky was clear, stars shining, and for the first time since all this started, I felt like I could finally exhale. Karen had tried to make me the villain. She thought she could use the HOA as a weapon, kick down my garage, and crush me with paperwork. But she underestimated one thing. I don't back down. Especially not during leg day. The HOA meeting was over, but the aftermath rippled through the neighborhood like someone had dropped a cinder block into a still pond. You could feel it in the way people glanced at Karen now, less fear, more caution, maybe even a hint of amusement. The woman who once patrolled the sidewalks like a self-appointed sheriff was now just another neighbor. A loud, overbearing neighbor with a binder and a bruised ego. 2 days after the meeting, I noticed she had removed the little HOA board president sign from her front lawn. That was big. She'd had that thing up for years, like a campaign ad that never came down. It was always perfectly staked in the grass, surrounded by decorative stones. Now, gone. Just a bare patch of dirt where her pride used to live. The official word came in an email that Friday morning. Subject line: Board Leadership Update. It was short and to the point. Karen had voluntarily stepped down from her position on the HOA board to focus on personal matters. Right. And I voluntarily eat broccoli when pizza's an option. I didn't need the email to know she was out. The neighborhood already knew. Word traveled fast here. Kids on bikes had been reenacting her garage invasion with Nerf guns and water bottles. Someone even made a TikTok of the video footage I posted, cut together with dramatic sound effects and one of those Law and Order HOA intros. It had sound bites like, "This isn't a gym, it's a violation," and freeze frames of her face with flashing red text, "Trespassing intensifies." And then there was my garage. Suddenly, it wasn't just my sanctuary, it became something of a legend. People started walking by slower. They'd peek in if the garage door was open, curious to see the infamous home gym that triggered a neighborhood coup. One guy even asked if I offered classes. I laughed and told him no, but I did let him try a set on the bench press. His wife called it a much-needed Karen cleanse. A couple of younger neighbors started asking about fitness advice. One teen said, "Hey, my dad said you're the guy who beat the HOA president with a dumbbell." I had to correct him, gently. No dumbbells were used in the making of that takedown. Just facts. And video footage. Still, I didn't want to make this my identity. I wasn't trying to become some rebel icon or start a war with every future HOA board member. I just wanted to work out, listen to some music, and not get accused of running a nightclub every time I did squats. So, I decided to have a little fun with it. Nothing hostile, just something light-hearted to put a bow on the madness. I ordered a custom metal sign online. When it arrived, I hung it above my garage entrance like a badge of honor. It read, "Club Quad, members, 1, noise complaints welcome, ****. And just below it, in smaller lettering, "Karen not allowed." The day after I hung it up, I came outside to find a group of kids taking selfies in front of it. Their mom stood nearby, laughing. "We just had to," she said. "This is iconic." Honestly, that felt better than any deadlift PR. Even the new acting HOA president, Leonard, stopped by during one of his evening walks. He paused, read the sign, chuckled, and said, "You know, I might get one of those for my garden shed." We stood there for a minute, just watching the street go quiet as the sun dipped below the rooftops. He turned to me and said, "It's strange how one person can hold so much control over a neighborhood, until the moment she doesn't." I nodded. It was never really about the gym. It was about her needing something to control. He agreed. And about the rest of us finally realizing we didn't have to be quiet about it. It struck me how many people had been quietly tolerating her for years. The overreach, the passive-aggressive letters, the endless rule citations. But it took one moment, her barging into my garage, to break the spell. One overstep too many. And then the whole thing unraveled. Of course, Karen didn't just disappear into the shadows. I still saw her sometimes, walking her little dog like nothing had happened. But she avoided my side of the street. She didn't make eye contact. No more phone-out recording, no more clipboard, no more barking about tulips and trash cans being visible from the curb. One afternoon, a couple weeks after the meeting, I saw her struggling to pull a large bag of mulch out of her trunk. Her dog leash was tangled around her arm, and she looked genuinely stuck. I watched from my driveway, debating whether to help. The old part of me, the pre-garage invasion me, might have rushed over. But this time, I hesitated. Then, before I could move, a new neighbor stepped in. A young woman who had just moved into the house down the block. She helped untangle the leash, lifted the mulch out with one hand, smiled, and said something that made Karen laugh, laugh, a real one. I guess people change. Or at least learn to fake it. And maybe that's enough. That night, I hit a new PR on my squat. No banging on the garage door. No clipboard in sight. Just silence from the HOA and a new kind of peace in the neighborhood. Later, I walked out front, looked up at the Club Quad sign, and grinned. For once, it wasn't about winning or proving a point. It was about claiming space. Standing your ground. And knowing when not to shrink to make others more comfortable. Karen broke into my garage thinking she could shut me down. All she did was wake me up. And now? The garage door's open. The music's on. And Club Quad is always accepting new members, as long as they come with respect and maybe a water bottle. Just don't bring a clipboard.